All right, everyone. This is Ken Klippenstein with TYT Investigates. I'm going to be talking to you today about a pretty amazing story, Customs and Border Patrol, when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, visited a few months ago to kind of look at the conditions there. They claimed that she was acting inappropriately and made some Border Patrol officials feel threatened. It turns out a reporter tried to find video within the facility because all these facilities have video cameras recording things. They tried to get that video released to, get a firsthand primary source account of what actually happened, so we don't have to rely on, either the Congresswoman's account or Border Patrol's. And what's amazing is when this video was requested under the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, now Border Patrol is claiming that they don't have video. So it makes you wonder about their, claims initially about Representative Ocasio-Cortez's, supposedly inappropriate conduct. The question is why, if they have all these cameras, and I'll go into this in a moment, but this was also a newer facility. Why would this newer facility with cameras, and the officials actually said at the time that the incident had been recorded, why do they not have the video now? I mean, I can speculate, and you guys, I imagine, have an idea, but I'll get into the details in just a second here. So the article, very good story, published in the Washington Examiner, conservative outlet, but facts are facts, and I appreciate the reporter tried to stick to primary source stuff. I love the Freedom of Information Act. If anyone's familiar with my work, I use FOIA all the time because you can get the actual primary source documents, the receipts, so to speak. So you don't have to rely on, opinions and anonymous sources and speculation. But so what this person tried to do was use FOIA to actually get that video and see, okay, well, what happened with Ocasio-Cortez? What happened with the Border Patrol? Let's see the video. And what's interesting is, of course, Border Patrol is claiming they have no video, but, a few months ago, one of their officials by the name of Michelle, it's a special operations supervisor at the El Paso Border Patrol station, said in 2 phone calls that the cameras were recording the area where Ocasio-Cortez visited and where the incident happened. And she said that she even pulled the footage so that it'd be ready to share if CBP ended up being asked to disclose it. So that seems extraordinarily suspicious to me. It's not just that they had these cameras, that it's as the article points out, a relatively new facility, a newer facility than many, and that one of their own officials said that it had been recorded, and now they're claiming we don't have it. Why would they do that? I have an idea. Maybe they don't want people to see what's in there. Maybe there was a technical error, but the person said she pulled the footage and was ready to release it, so that doesn't look great. And I think what's important about this story is it should really make us question, our law enforcement. Not that there, aren't good folks in law enforcement, but there's often this attitude, these are the police, we should, do and believe whatever they say. But, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not appreciating the good work that they do if you want to hold those among them accountable for, stuff that they're doing that's potentially bad. And moreover, we have plenty of examples of law enforcement doing bad things and then trying to conceal it, as appears to be the case with this. So I would say when, just because somebody has a badge and they say something, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily more honest than a congressperson or than an ordinary person or whoever. We should, approach things with the same skeptical attitude that we do perhaps anything else. And I'd want to take just one last look at the article here. It's interesting because once they failed to release the video, Ocasio-Cortez took to Twitter, and she had some interesting comments about this. She wasn't too happy, as you could imagine, because she had basically been accused of, as it was described at the time, making these Border Patrol officials feel uncomfortable and even, quote, threatened, which I think is sort of hilarious, because Ocasio-Cortez, I think, is 5'6", fairly, I think most people would agree, a diminutive person, maybe not the most imposing stature. And these are cops. These are federal law enforcement officials. So I thought that was sort of silly. And barring any sort of evidence, I tended to be skeptical of that. And now it looks like we're not going to have any evidence because either they don't want to release it or it doesn't exist. But what AOC said on Twitter was quite interesting. She says, in response to their failure to release the video, "Of course CBP is saying the tape doesn't exist, because then everyone would see the horrifying conditions I was talking about. If the full footage was released, you'd see CBP officers sneaking photos of me in secure places and migrant women on the floor with their hair falling out. Horrifying. And she goes on to say, I was in that CBP facility. There were cameras and monitors everywhere, and we're supposed to believe that every single camera and every single feed in the detention center just happened to go offline. I agree with her. Seems a little sus, as they say. I'm going to go over some of those details once more now that I see a lot more people are in the chat, are watching now. So let me start once more here. Hey everyone, this is Ken Klippenstein with TYT Investigates. I'm going to be talking to you about a pretty amazing story involving Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's visit a few months ago to a Border Patrol facility in El Paso, and Border Patrol's allegation that she had acted inappropriately and made some Border Patrol officials feel threatened. What happened since then is a reporter tried to get the camera footage, or a bunch of different cameras and monitors inside this Border Patrol facility, to actually show firsthand what happened so we don't have to speculate about it. And what came of that? Well, Border Patrol claims that they don't have video. And that's suspicious for a number of reasons, one of which is that one of the officials, as was reported in the Washington Examiner, herself said that there was video when her visit first happened. And this official, I'll give you the official's name. It's mentioned in the article, which I'll link to in the video description. But Michelle Perez, who's a special operations supervisor at the El Paso Border Patrol station, said that she actually pulled the footage specifically after the event happened, anticipating that it was going to be requested. And now they're saying we don't have it. So what happened between her having the footage, pulling it, being ready to release it, and then a journalist asking that this public information be released to the public? Our taxes paid for the cameras to be put in there, paid for the Border Patrol facility, paid for the congresswoman who visited there. We should know what happened, and they won't release it. So I thought Representative Ocasio-Cortez's response was pretty interesting and amusing. She obviously wasn't too happy about it. She said she took to Twitter after this report came out and said, I'm reading from her tweets, "Of course CBP is saying the tape doesn't exist, because then everyone would see the horrifying conditions I was talking about. If the full footage was released, you'd see CBP officers sneaking photos of me in secure spaces and migrant women on the floor with their hair falling out." Horrifying. I don't know if anyone remembers this. Of course, a couple months ago seems like hundreds of years ago in the Trump administration, how quick the news cycle is. But the conditions she described, seem deplorable. These are not conditions that any decent society would permit of anyone, citizen or non-citizen. But she goes on to say, I was in the CBP facility. There were cameras and monitors everywhere. Are we really supposed to believe that every single camera and every single feed in the detention center happened to go offline the day that I and an entire congressional delegation visited? I don't. Well, I don't either. And I hope that a lot of people looking at this don't believe it either, because it seems awfully suspect that one of their own officials would say they had the video pulled and ready for release, and then, of course, they lose.